Vice Chair Chaney. We will now have RS 26766.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Representative Chaney, District 10 Caldwell. I'm glad to be here to introduce the RS. I think it's best if I very briefly kind of give a thumbnail sketch of the issue that it's aimed at addressing. And I think the best way that I can do that is to ask that those of you that have seen the movie think about the movie from 2002, Minority Report, starring Tom Cruise. Back when, well, anyway. Some things don't need to be said. But for those that haven't seen the movie's about Washington, D.C. in the year 2054, and there's this futuristic way of predicting crimes before they happen. And so people are being arrested for crimes they have not yet committed. And things are good because crime rate is low. But there are people being arrested for things that they never would have done in the first place, and Tom Cruise's character knows that. And so when the government starts trying to go after his character, he knows that what he needs to do to fight back is to track down a very well-kept secret, the Minority Report that will exonerate him and show that he is not about to commit murder in 36 hours in the future. Now, this is all very unrealistic, but at a certain level, this sort of thing is happening now in the United States. And it's beginning to happen in Idaho through algorithmic risk assessment tools used for both pretrial release decisions and sentencing decisions. These algorithmic tools are used to grade defendants on their likelihood of recidivism, the likelihood that they will commit another crime in the future. Like in the movie, people were punished for crimes they hadn't yet committed. Under these tools, they're held in jail or sentenced to longer prison sentences based on predictions of crimes that they will commit in the future, based on this computer model. In the movie, the anecdote was highly secretive and well kept. In real life, only the vendors who sell these systems know what really goes into them and how much weight is given to every factor. In fact, criminal defendants challenging the use of these tools in some states have been unable to get the information about what goes into those tools because the companies have successfully argued that it's a trade secret and that they shouldn't be required, even when somebody's liberty is at stake, to turn over what's in these algorithms. In the Minority Report movie, the Minority Report itself is what reveals the errors in the system. And in real life, it also reveals the errors in the system, but the phrase Minority Report has a very different meaning in real life. You see, it's the minorities who, according to the data, are being electronically discriminated against. The accuracy of these systems ranges anywhere from 56% to 65%, but the rate of error, if the system errs, it's going to err on the side of predicting that someone of a minority is more likely than they really are to commit a subsequent crime, and to err on the side of saying that a Caucasian is less likely than they really are to commit a subsequent crime, as borne out by the data. That's why Senator Buckner-Webb and I have brought the RS that you have before you. It addresses the pretrial use of these technologies only. It seeks to demand a non-biased system to be demonstrated, and that system be fully transparent. And we're not trying at all to ban the courts from being able to use electronic tools to help them assess their population, but we are trying to ban a Minority Report-like situation here in Idaho. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, Representative Gannon.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Chaney, do we have any of this technology here in Idaho? Has the state of Idaho paid to buy any of this technology, and is it being used at all here in Idaho yet?
Representative Chaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Gannon, I don't have the full exhaustive list. To my knowledge, the state level of government has not bought in, but there are counties using it, including Ada County.
Representative Ricks.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Representative Chaney. Is there any type of feedback? Do you have any examples of it being used on certain people here in Idaho, or any type of feedback of, I mean, I know this sounds like more of a preemptive type thing, so it doesn't come here, but you mentioned it is here in Idaho. Can you give us a little more information or examples if you have any?
Representative Chaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Ricks. The data that I've seen from Ada County is not broken down by demographic. It's not fully predictive. It's not fully accurate, especially on who they say are lower risk persons. There have been studies by Boise State University into these systems, not using Idaho data, I don't think, but it is a local study that has shown that when the data is aggregated, that these systematic biases exist. I'm not aware, or I'm unsure whether there's enough aggregated data available yet in Idaho to support them. However, the same software systems that caused the end results in the other studies that I cited when I cited those success rates, those exact same vendors, those exact same software systems are the ones that are being sold to Idaho counties.
Okay, and follow up?
Follow up.
And so the intention here with this proposed bill RS would be to prohibit using this that would cause any type of like racial profiling or minorities from being able to, I guess, prevent using class or something like that to determine guilt ahead of time. Is that, I mean, is that the whole concept of this, is to try to eliminate and allow a person to have their day in court and due process without any biases ahead of time?
Representative Chaney, and just remind the committee, this is, you can answer that if you want, but this is just for printing, and then we'll get into the details. But you can get into those details now if you want.
Well, in that case, Mr. Chairman, I'll give the short answer, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And some of that's relevant because if the answer to that question was no, then it would definitely be relevant to this having this printed or not. So, Representative Harkin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Chaney, I'm the pretrial release programs that I'm familiar with in one of the larger counties. I guess I have never noticed that a bias on nationalities, but more on if they actually live in the community, if they are a flight risk, if they, their criminal record in the past. Could you give me the name of the company or the test?
Representative Chaney.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harkin, I can come with some of those names. I don't have them readily available, but I will say that a lot of those factors are absolutely appropriate factors to weigh. In fact, under Idaho law, they're required factors to weigh. And it's not at all what I'm trying to do away with. But the fact of the matter is, once somebody a decision is made, there's absolutely no way to confirm how much weight is given to a given factor under the current system.
Representative Tito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Chaney. So what agency or who will be the ones who determine whether all of these criteria are met for the validity of the program that will be used?
Representative Chaney.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Zito, this creates a list of requirements. And so if a county wanted to purchase one of these programs, they would presumptively, and the intention is that they would put it on the vendor to demonstrate that they could meet this standard. And so it would be a kind of a purchase guideline. Now, once it's implemented, the defendants who are affected by this would all have the right to challenge whether or not this was really followed, and then that would create the guideline.
Representative Zollinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Chaney, question on line 25 and 26. And I think I know the answer here, but is there any reason why we would just have this software assessment be free of bias against classes of individuals protected from discrimination and not just free from bias against all individuals?
Representative Chaney.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Zollinger, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
So I see, so the definition of free from bias talks about individuals in protected classes. I'm not super familiar with pretrial risk assessment software and algorithms, but wouldn't the ultimate goal to be that this software is free from all biases against all individuals and not just biases against certain protected classes?
Representative Chaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative Zollinger. By its very nature, the decision on pretrial release has to have biases against certain classes of people. Representative Harkin mentioned people who don't live in the community, who are less likely to show up for trial, people with previous convictions. And so those would all be classes of people who I believe it's perfectly appropriate to place some weight against in the pretrial release decision process.
You did have follow-up or additional question? Representative Gannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that this issue that Representative Chaney's brought up is very alarming and something we should certainly look at as a committee. So I would move to introduce RS 26766.
Thank you.
Are there any comments regarding the motion? Okay, the motion is to introduce RS 26766. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.